Hey there, thanks for tuning in to Duck Bricks. I'm Chris, and LEGO is continuing making their Marvel busts with the Iron Spider-Man bust. Hot off the heels of the Iron Man Mark IV, this is the second in that series, and I'm sure there's going to be many more to come, featuring Spider-Man in the iron suit given to him for Avengers Infinity War. It has an exclusive Iron Spider-Man minifigure who is identical to the one that came in the Endgame final battle, but this one does have arm printing, which is really nice, and the build is genuinely pretty interesting. There's a lot of really unique building techniques going on to craft the armor and actually have the spider logo be somewhat brick built. I like a lot of what this is doing for the torso, and then the head, honestly, I have a lot of mixed feelings on the head. So join me for an early look at the Iron Spider-Man bust, where we'll discuss, is this worth the price you have to pay? This set right here is our next installment in the ongoing LEGO Marvel Busts series, starting off with Iron Man earlier this year and continuing with Iron Spider. It retails for $60 or 60 euros and comes with only 379 pieces, which is not good value. There is no way around it. This should not be $60. I don't really know why it is. It does, however, come with an exclusive Iron Spider-Man minifigure who is identical to the one that appeared in the Avengers Endgame final battle earlier this year, but this time with arm printing, which clearly shows that LEGO has the ability to make figures fully detailed if they want to for Marvel, but decide to gatekeep certain details of figures behind expensive sets or have you pay more for a better version of the same figure, which I don't really agree with. Price aside and moving on to the figure itself, I'm actually really impressed and happy with the vast majority of the build, minus a lot of the head. I think the torso is genuinely really impressive. I love how they were able to capture the spider logo kind of stretching throughout the shoulders, all by using fully brick-built elements. Instead of using stickers or printed pieces and over-relying on that, they really tried to brick build and showcase what can be done with the LEGO system. And that's something I really appreciate. One really interesting thing that you can do with the stand is you have a couple of different options to display it. You can display it with the minifigure on the side, or you can remove the minifigure and just display it with the stand itself. I have to imagine that this is something they came up with because they probably weren't sure if they wanted to even include a minifigure at all in the sets, and then they realized that, well, for $60 they probably have to give people something for their money's worth, so we do get two versions of the stand we can use. But for me, as someone who displays my minifigures separately from the sets for themes like this is a really cool option where you can choose to display it one way or the other. Moving into the main build, again, as I mentioned, the torso work is really well done. I think that the actual angles being used for the sculpting are some of the most impressive LEGO building techniques that I've seen in a standard official retail set. It's nothing super complex, but the way that all the curves sit together, the studs on the side techniques kind of arcing in and out with clips and all different bars is really, really cool. And I'm a fan of how they were able to pull it off. There's a couple of things that I think could have been maybe a little bit improved, but honestly, I don't even know how I would have been able to do that because there's a little bit of wiggle in the shoulders. You kind of have to just get things perfectly aligned to look good, and obviously that is with any LEGO sculpture. You do have to kind of position things a certain way, but it does require a little bit of extra care to really make sure that it looks good on display. If you're careless when putting it together, pieces can tend to kind of wiggle a little bit and it can look a bit awkward, so that's just something I wanted to point out. Thankfully, every single decal on this is fully printed, so you've got a Nexo tile, a gold one just printed with a plain dark blue print to kind of get that gold outline, which is really nice. And then on the head, you have these multitude of different printed elements, a printed Nexo tile for the mask, printed eyes, which are 1x2 tiles that are curved hemispheres, and then you have the curvature pieces at the top, which also have the spider pattern. The head itself is something I am very, very mixed on. I think most of the body does a very good job at not being gappy from most angles, but the head itself is remarkably gappy when looked at from certain angles. A full-on side profile looks really awkward because, as you can see, there is just so much empty space, and honestly, I do not envy the designers who had to figure this out, because if you asked me to create a brick-built Spider-Man head at this scale, I don't really know how else I would have been able to do that without using some wildly illegal techniques. So I definitely don't necessarily want to knock the design team for this, but I do think that at a certain scale, it is just really hard to depict certain things out of Lego. And the Spider-Man mask is a victim of that, where it just doesn't look quite right to me. The backpack is technically removable, so you can remove the back arms should you please, but obviously they're meant to stay on. And we do have a little bit of good articulation too. Unlike the Iron Man helmet, which somewhat inexplicably used a mixel joint, aka a mini ball joint for the head, meaning that it barely had any articulation to look up or down because it would just always flop downwards, this is using a standard large-scale ball joint, which I really appreciate. And of course, you can bend the robotic arms on the back in any way to kind of make it look like it's striking an opponent or just being angled in unique poses. That's an aspect about the build that I really do appreciate, is how it is a bust, but you can kind of pose it up in different ways. And it is one of the better proportioned busts when it comes to the design of the head. I really feel like it just has a really nice angular shape and design, and overall it just is a really nicely built model, all things considered. Comparing it next to the Iron Man Mark IV bust, which was also $60, it is cool to see these at a relatively similar scale. I actually had this one with me in my apartment, so I was able to do a direct comparison, and I think they do look good as the start of an ongoing series. I definitely do think that LEGO will probably look to continue these going forwards, and I'm sure there's a ton of mask characters they could do in this style, but honestly, for $60, I'm really curious how well these are actually doing. I can only see the most die-hard Marvel collectors getting these, and even then, as something that is meant to appeal to the general public, I think that $60 is just way too much to ask for something like this. Taking a look at the Iron Spider-Man minifigure, it is a really good figure. I think I do like the amount of detail. The arms being printed is absolutely fantastic, and the only con to me is that the legs are just plain dual-molded dark blue and red legs. I really think they could have done something a little bit better for those, especially if you're gonna go all deluxe, right? $60, you're charging a lot. I want to see that reflected in the minifig budget, and I guess a little bit of it is with printed arms, which is nice, but also kind of the bare minimum for a Spider-Man figure like this. I just keep thinking back to the original Homecoming Spider-Man we got back in 2017, which had printed arms and printed dual molded legs, which was kind of par for the course back then, but nowadays seems like such a luxury, and I don't know why we can't go back to those days. Altogether, I definitely feel like the bust sets are a bit of a mistake at $60. If this was priced at $40, I definitely feel like a lot more people would like these, and people would be more excited about the different busts, especially coming with the minifigure of what they depict. But at $60, again, if you look at the piece count for something like this, you have around 300 and some pieces. It just makes absolutely no sense to me, and unfortunately that is something I'm saying a lot for this particular wave of LEGO Marvel. The prices do not make sense. 379 pieces should not be $60, even if some of the pieces are large, which they're not, and even if some of them are printed in deluxe, which sure, some of them are printed, but it's not that much more deluxe than I would say your standard LEGO set. So it's a little bit strange to me. $60, can't defend it, and I cannot recommend it at that price. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for tuning in to Duckbricks, and be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon, and bye for now.